Okay, are we ready?
We're missing
Sam
missing one Sam
No,
at the moment.
missing one Sam.
Empoli done Juventus in the cup last night as well, didn't they? On
Yeah, that was
penalties.
great. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Juventus, well, I feel Thiago Motta's at the end of the road. I think they might sack him, Well, not
You
sack
think?
him, but I think they're gonna leave. It's gonna leave at the end of the season. They are just appalling. They got no charisma, no. But yeah.
I still
So-
think he could fall upwards, Thiago Motta. Admittedly, I haven't seen as much Juventus as you would have, but he
Someone
came,
would take a
he
stab
came
on him,
into the
surely.
job with a very good reputation. I know he's failed elsewhere before, but it does seem to be a very modern archetype
Yeah,
manager.
it's very much fancied, but I don't know.
Daniele, we wanted your thoughts on the Champions League draw, because obviously we couldn't talk about it last week, but obviously 2 fixtures with clubs from the same nations. Like, how are you feeling about that in the round of 16?
But it's appalling. The thing is appalling. I mean, now nothing surprises me anymore. So I think, after seeing PSG Brest, I can't wait to see Brest PSG in the league.
Whetted your appetite ready for the
Oh
league
yeah,
fixtures.
absolutely. And the Derby of Madrid was like the 6th time we see it this season already. Ah, yeah, fantastic. Bayern Munich, Bayern Leverkusen. But they're gonna scrap. They're gonna scrap extra time soon. So yeah.
Is that official or
No, they're talking about it.
talking about
They're
it?
talking about it because
Can't. That's ridiculous. I can imagine he'll do it. It's just that's ridiculous.
They will do it. The reason is too much uncertainty. Nothing happens in extra times, and the TVs can easily do their own schedule. So to simplify, people work on TV, and then obviously soon they probably sell packages only to watch the penalties.
Yeah,
But yeah.
penalty pack.
You just see the
Extra-
penalty pack. You just watch the
Yeah.
5 minutes of penalties.
Extra time is great, and like the good example of it would be Real and Atleti. So Real haven't beaten Atleti in 90 minutes in like 9 games. They've eliminated them from 3 cup tournaments in that time.
No, but I think extra time is great. And now that there is no longer the away goal rule, why scrapping the extra time? There is really no justification for that.
It's a lot of incentive.
The greatest
for-
game in history is Italy-Germany 4-3 in the 1970 World Cup. After 90 minutes, 1-1. You would have said Germany snatches an equalizer in the last minute with with Schnellinger. Yeah, they go straight to penalties. All right. What's the fun in that?
Hello.
There we
Hello.
go.
I think I'm ready to go.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
It's FA Cup 5th round weekend with 8 games across 4 days. We're back to full strength to celebrate with 2 singles each from our panel of 3 betting experts. We've also got our regular pod treble. And after last week, you will all be pleased to know that I will have no part of it. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How are you doing, Sam?
Hello, Dan. I'm very well. How are you?
Great, great. Have you enjoyed the midweek action? Get a look at some of the Premier League games over the last few days?
Yeah, I got a few in. Just watched. What was last time? Liverpool Newcastle last night. Pretty comfortable for Liverpool, wasn't it? They didn't. Newcastle didn't really put up too much of a fight. Kind of a continuation from their performance against Manchester City in the game beforehand. No Isak just before kickoff. That would have thrown them a little bit, but still, like for Newcastle, like you expect a little bit more. Maybe I know Liverpool are very handy at Anfield, but I just wanted a little bit more from them, and it never came. Callum Wilson probably should have done better with one of his 2-3 attempts, but other than that, there was nothing to shout home about.
Pretty limp performance, wasn't it? Also joining us today, Scott Thornton. How are we doing, Scott?
All good, yeah. Nice to have a busy fixture list, and yeah, enjoyed it last night. It was I watched the Man United game, and I've got this little thing where if I'm watching something and it looks like you kick off in the last 10 minutes, I'll back each team to have 2 more cards, and the prices get fat. So last night when our 97th minute booking came in, there was celebrations in my house.
Also joining us, Daniele Pastrella. How are we doing, man?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Had a week break, so back refreshed, all in form.
Nice. Midweek football, what have you been watching?
Coppa Italia.
Yeah.
Inter Lazio, and then last night the shock of the shocks that Juventus took Empoli to penalties. I think that was the shock, because obviously the Empoli won. First time they reached the semi-final ever in Coppa Italia. Serie B bound, 9 defeats in the last 11. They look like the better team. Now they're going to play Bologna, and we got another Milan derby, the 5th Milan derby in Coppa Italia, Milan-Inter. Inter-Milan, and then that begs the question, the Coppa Italia is played over one leg entirely, even the semi-finals, 2 legs. Okay, I just leave it there. So maybe first game unders, I would say.
Big week of cup matches across Europe,
Yes.
and in England as well. FA Cup fixtures this weekend, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Sam just touched upon Liverpool versus Newcastle. Of course, that is a dress rehearsal for the big one, the Carabao Cup final, which takes place in 2.5 weeks' time. And Daniele, you've got an eye on Liverpool there. Well, Premier League looks just about wrapped up, and they're hunting another trophy with that cup competition.
Do you want the logical explanations or all the omens? Let's start with the logical ones, I think.
Yeah, sure.
So Liverpool to win the treble at the moment pays around 8 on Bet65. Obviously, the treble is Premier League, League Cup, and Champions League, because Plymouth knocked them out of the FA Cup. Now, I think this is a value bet at the moment, and right now, this is the best time to pick Liverpool to win the treble at these odds. And you might think, well, it's too much, of course, 8.0 to win 3 trebles. Liverpool, by the way, have only done it 3 times in the history, but we go down into a second. First of all, no team in the Premier League history has ever lost the league with such a big lead at this stage of the season. 14 days ago, we were talking about Liverpool going through a tough run of fixtures and having to play 5 games in 14 days. Well, now they actually gained a point on Arsenal, because before the Everton game, they were 6 points ahead with a game in hand. Now they're 13 points ahead with Arsenal having 1 game in hand. So if Arsenal wins that game, which is not a given, Liverpool would have gained a point after such a difficult run of fixture. In March, they only play 1 Premier League game, which is against Southampton, which I would imagine they will win. So it's not about if, but when for Arne Slot. Realistically, 26th of April or the following weekend away at Chelsea, they win the league. Now, why betting on the treble is a smart idea? Is because they are heavy favourites to win the EFL Cup against Newcastle, a team that yesterday they beat convincingly, also on the XG battle. They also beat them in November, although they drew 3-3. They won the XG battles. They haven't lost in 17 games against Newcastle in all competitions. Liverpool, they are heavy favourites, of course, but if you bet on Liverpool to win the FL Cup, that pays only 136. If you bet on Liverpool to win the Champions League, that pays only 650. So you can't really have a massive gain. You might win 5 or 6 units. Bet on them together with the Premier League, which is wrapped up, and you can win 7 or 8 units depending on the bookmaker. So at the moment, it makes sense. It makes sense to do it before they play PSG, because they are also favourites to beat PSG and to advance, and obviously the odds are going to shorten. The bookmakers do believe in this, because last night, before they kicked off against Newcastle, the odds for Liverpool to win the treble were 9. Now they've gone back to 8. So basically, you're betting them on them winning the Champions League effectively at odds of 8. You're probably not going to find a better chance. And I believe it's difficult, but not impossible. And yeah, it is something that needs to be done right now.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Premier League does look just about wrapped up. And if the EFL Cup final goes anyway, the same way it went last night in the Premier League match, Liverpool versus Newcastle, then yeah, that's 2 trophies already in the bag. We're just waiting for the third one. Sam, I want to bring you in here. What are your thoughts on the bet? What are your thoughts on the potential value behind it, given Liverpool's path in the Champions League?
Yeah, I mean, logically, it makes sense if you consider that the Premier League's wrapped up, and also, yeah, that they're very, very short in the EFL Cup final, which I would expect them to win. So this hinges on the Champions League, which will obviously be the toughest part of the bet. And for me, I've not seen a team in Europe that are better than Liverpool this year. Not in patches, not overall, not nothing season long, which makes me believe that there is a team out there better than Liverpool. Obviously, you've got Real Madrid in the Champions League, which is a tough ask for anyone coming up and playing against Real Madrid in the Champions League. But other than them, yeah, I would back Liverpool to beat anyone. I've seen in flashes from PSG. PSG have looked very good in the last couple months, but again, I would back Liverpool to get the better of them, especially over 2 legs. In a final, maybe that's a little different. Anyone can win in a one-off 90 minutes, but over 2 legs when Anfield is the second leg, that is again a very big ask for PSG. So yeah, I think it's a good bet. Like if you look at it like Liverpool to win the treble at 7-1, 8-1, doesn't sound amazing, but when you work through it logically, yeah, I don't mind it.
The implied probability of this bet are 12.5 of them winning the treble. According to Betsy, Liverpool have got a 14.1% of winning the Champions League. I think there is an edge there. There is a gain to be made. And this is just a logical win. But there are also all the omens, which I went through. Liverpool have won the treble 3 times in their history.
They've never won the treble, have they?
No, they never won the treble, but they won 3 trophies 3 times in their history. 2020, it included the Club World Cup. 2001, when they won 3 cups. And 1984, which was the only time they won the championship, the first division, and the Champions League back then called European Cup. Now, in 1983, a new manager replaced a historic manager, which was Bob Paisley. Joe Fagan replaced Bob Paisley. Bob Paisley has stayed in the club for 9 years. Jurgen Klopp has stayed in the club for 9 years and has been replaced by Arne Slot. Sounds familiar. Liverpool were knocked out that season in the second round of the FA Cup by a coastal team playing in the lower division. Brighton and Hove Albion lost 2-0. This season they lost against Plymouth. Again, another good omen. But back then, Liverpool managed to play an awful lot of game in the season, 67 in total. This season, if they reach the final, they play 61. Back then, they had Ian Rush scoring 47 goals, but only a squad of 20 players. This season, they got a larger squad. Of course, Mo Salah in form. So again, it's not impossible. It's been done once, but I think it will all be about, apart from the omens and the jokes, it's all about squad rotation. At the moment, Virgil van Dijk has played every single minute in the Premier League. Mo Salah is the second player for minutes played in the Premier League, very close to Van Dijk. Gravenberch is the 14th. These are the 3 fundamental players that Slot barely changes in the Premier League. But if from now on, Slot start making changes and start playing perhaps second-string players in the Premier League and stop thinking about chasing records, because I remember in that COVID season, Liverpool beat the record, won the league with 7 games to spare, which is the current record. But if they don't chase that record, I think the treble is achievable, it is manageable, but again, probably look at rotations in the league and focus on the cup competition. And I think the final in the 16th February, as I said, against Newcastle, heavy favorites.
If you go back to the team that's done it most recently, Manchester City in 22-23, they were still fighting for a Premier League title until kind of match day 35, 36. Okay, they won it 5 points clear, but it was kind of, it was pretty much wrapped up. They went on like a 10-game winning run at the end, but it was still playing a lot of intensive matches in April, in May. Liverpool won't have to do that, will they? Title could be wrapped up within, with probably like 6 or 7 matches to go, and they can do it at a canter. That is certainly going to help and play into this bet. Sam, what did you want to bring up?
I was just going to mention in terms of managing workloads and injuries, like Liverpool have had little to no injuries for most of the season, and their squad is very fresh at the minute, and that's no fluke. Last year was a different story. Arne Slot's come in, and I know at Feyenoord, his Feyenoord team was exactly the same. That kind of workload balance that him and his backroom staff implement, like they're renowned for being really, really shrewd. And you only have to look at Feyenoord this season, like they're plagued with injuries, to know that it's probably not a fluke. So I think this is something that will continue, not only for the second half of the season, but probably under his guidance at Liverpool.
Yeah, certainly helps. Daniele, are you daring to put that as an official track bet for the pod?
Look, I think I would. I think a half a unit on that sounds good to me. I mean, as I said, the odds are so good. Right is the right time. I mean, at 8, with odds of 8, yeah, I'll put a half a unit on that.
You can't not back it now. If they were to win the treble and you've just sat here, for for 5 or so minutes saying
No,
how
it's
good it looks. You know.
it's
You have to now.
pointless. I mean, half of a unit, even in a third of a unit, I'm going down and down now.
Oh, he's
So
going down now. 0.1
no.
of a unit.
No, but I think he's the bet now. It is the bet. I mean, yeah, why not? Yeah, let's back it.
You've also
Half
got
a
the
unit.
possibility that Atleti knock out Real Madrid as well. And don't
Yeah,
get me wrong,
of
I
course.
think the Champions League is more complicated this season than Real versus Liverpool, but that's the narrative at the moment. I do think Inter have got a chance. I think Barca have got a chance. PSG obviously have to get past Liverpool, but they would be contenders if they did that. But logically, Liverpool deserve their favourites tag. They are the most consistent team in Europe. We're all scared of the mythical Real Madrid in the Champions League. That's basically what it boils down to. Nobody's willing to back against Carlo Ancelotti putting that eyebrow up in the last 5 minutes of a game and winning. Like, I understand it, but Liverpool are the best team in Europe. So logically, you've got to say it's a great bet.
They're not favourites, though, are they? Champions League.
Betsy actually has Arsenal as the
I was
highest
just
win
gonna say,
probability at the moment.
Betsy's smoking something. I don't know. What's going on? I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. Mikel Merino is going to have to rekindle his R9 levels of form.
Yeah, it's not looking so good anymore, the record, but may get to that later. Okay, first tip of the pod. Daniele's going for a Liverpool treble. Liverpool to win the Premier League, the EFL Cup, and the Champions League. That's, was it 7.0, 8.0?
8. Last time I checked this morning, 8.
8.0, good stuff.
It might have gone down massively.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It'll start tumbling down now.
Yeah.
It's still
let's get
there.
on with...
It's still there.
Yeah,
You're all good.
still there. All right, cool. Let's get on with the singles for the episode. Sam, do you want to kick us off with your bet from League One?
Yeah, well, that was a really strong way to start the podcast, and this definitely isn't as exciting. I've come for Burton Albion, 0.0 Asian handicap at home to Mansfield. That's at 1.9. So this is a big game, sold out away end. A must not lose for both clubs. You'd probably have to say in the scrap for relegation. If the League One season started on the 1st of January, Burton Albion would be in 5th, so playoff chasing type form. And only Exeter would have returned fewer points than Mansfield out of the 24 League One sides. But overall, looking at the season as a whole, Burton are in the relegation places. Their performances and points returned before January, the first half of the season, had them bottom of the league with just 2 wins and 14 points from 24 games. So this has been a season of 2 halves for Burton. And it's probably no surprise given the player turnover we saw in the summer. That, and also Gary Bowyer coming in mid-December as Burton's new manager, that's had a real impact on the club. And it's got them heading in the right direction, the kind of direction that owners would have hoped for and expected in the summer. And now they're getting results over the line. Only 2 losses in the last 10, wins over Lincoln, Stevenage and Wigan away from home, which is not bad at all. And also victories over Reading and Rotherham at home in that time. So it's been a pretty impressive run, really, and it's given this club a lift. And Burton will be surveying the lay of the land now in League One, and they should be pretty confident. I am pretty confident, anyway, that their upward trajectory will have them quite safely out of the relegation picture soon enough. But like I said previously, going off all performances and results in 2025, they are a playoff chasing team form-wise. They're the 5th best in the league. In that respect, better than Wickham, Wrexham and Huddersfield, to name 3 League One clubs in 2025. And contrastingly, in the same time frame, Mansfield are 23rd of 24 teams, only Exeter have returned fewer points, and they've played 2 games fewer than Mansfield due to cup commitments. So in terms of form and home advantage, I've ended on Burton on the drawn or bet line at 1.9.
Interesting. I mean, it looks good on paper. Betsy's not fancying it. Betsy's not having it if you haven't seen the projections. Given Mansfield projected Mansfield 1.43 goals to Burton's 1.31, 0.11 goal difference. But the record looks good. So what do you think about Betsy? Well, is she still smoking the same stuff she got for the Champions League?
Yeah,
or?
she's malfunctioning, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised because that is why the bookmakers would have priced Mansfield as favourites originally. Because obviously they're pricing these games on similar kind of underlying data models, same as Betsy. So I'm not surprised that she's come out with that. And for me, this is like a classic case of pricing the 2 teams on season data as a whole, where either side sit in the League One table rather than really digging down into recent form trends like the situation with injuries, rather looking at the match specifically and seeing where the two sides are at right now. So, yeah, I'm very happy to take team in better form with home advantage on a draw-nil bet line. If you look at Mansfield, they're without a win in 9 games, the fourth longest winless streak in the Football League. No win since the 4th of January, and we're a couple of days away from March as we record this podcast. Rock bottom of the 6 and 10 game form table. They've collected 1 solitary point in their last 9 games. No clean sheet in 12. Their attacking threat up top is limited. Injuries are mounting. That's obviously attributing to the slide back towards League 2. They were priced as favourites here, like I said originally, and that's changed now, but I still don't think they should be entering the tie as a pick'em. I'm pretty sure they should be underdogs here away from home against a Burton team who are getting wins over the line. So, yeah, Burton 1.9, 0.08 now.
Yeah, looks good. Very big game in League One at the bottom of the table. Sam's first bet is Burton +0 versus Mansfield. It's 1.90. Full unit on that, Sam?
Yes, please.
Good stuff.
As you say, the form is dire.
It's not quite a derby, is it, as well? But they're quite close by, aren't they? Mansfield and Burton, about an hour away, I think. So quite feisty one, potentially. Scott, back to you. Give us your first bet looking at FA Cup match this weekend.
Yep, so we're going for Palace and Millwall for our first game. We're going to talk about the other one. This is the earlier kickoff, so we're going to back over 16.5 tackles for Palace and under 30.5 shots in the match. Palace have really, really impressed me of late. Did a rocky start in the Glasner this season. Obviously, when he came in last season, he's a breath of fresh air. There's some really big results. A big win over United. I thought they kind of carried that into the season. It didn't happen. That leaves them basically performing well in the league. I think they're up to 12th now after an impressive 4-1 win over Villa. But the situation is that they're going to want a cup run desperately. They reached the final of the FA Cup in 2016, took Man United to extra time before losing that game. It's quite open, the FA Cup. They've got a chance to win this. So it's a big game for Palace. I think we'll see real intent in the way they tackle, and they'll treat it like a big Premier League game. I don't think there'll be any sort of... They're not going to take it lightly. I say they're not going to take the challenge lightly. And they take on a Millwall side. They're in very good form. They've done really well. They've lost 1 in 9. But they've got a set up to be spoilers. They can't let Palace play here. And I think that's where the unders shots really comes into this. I think we'll just see a lower count. So in Palace's... we'll talk about the tackles first, actually. But as Millwall look to just maintain their intensity and making a scrappy affair, expect them to just interrupt the flow of the game. Palace are making the most tackles in the Premier League with an average of 21.67. I'm not really worried about the step down in terms of opposition because they made 19 against Doncaster in the last round. Obviously not as good as Millwall. And just Millwall's willingness to make it a physical game has meant they're forcing plenty of tackles under Harris as well. Since he come in, their opponents are averaging 23 tackles per game, which is a very, very decent amount. Leeds in the last round, they're the closest thing in the Championship as we've got to a Premier League team, really. And there were 21 tackles for Leeds in that fixture. As Palace beat Villa midweek then, we don't usually see the tackles in Villa games, but they made it decent. I've got the number here is wrong, so I'll clarify it at the end. But in that game, there were just 25 shots, and I think we'll see fewer again. There were 25 shots as Palace headed to Doncaster in the last round. Doncaster really had the bit between their teeth. They had 15 of those shots. Palace should exert a little bit more control here in front of their home fans. Millwall's last FA Cup game saw 22 shots. So again, the 30.5 line looks far too high to me. So over 16.5 tackles, Palace, and under 30.5 shots in the match. I'll clarify the tackle numbers for the Villa game now.
Yeah, we've had a few bets on Palace in the FA Cup specials we've done on the pod so far this season. I think we've had a few players to scores, players who had shots, like that sort of thing. We are expecting, I think all of us quite fancy Palace, maybe some of the smaller mid-table teams in the Premier League to get something in the FA Cup this season. It's quite an open competition, isn't it? Are you concerned, Scott, looking back at Palace's last couple of fixtures in the cup competition, it hasn't really been a convincing performance in either one. And looking at the Premier League, I saw a tweet going around this week about Palace having 9 wins, 9 draws, and 9 losses. It's in the Premier League this season. It's like the most Crystal Palace thing you'll ever imagine. It was mid-table team, most inconsistent sort of team you'll see in a league form. But yeah, how are you feeling about Palace? Are you concerned maybe they may not show up, and other recent FA Cup matches kind of factoring into your thinking, yeah, maybe they won't quite live up to what we're expecting of them?
I think I can see why you'd be concerned from it, but the FA Cup really has just opened up from the last round, basically. Liverpool losing was a big thing. And, winning the first 2 games against proper lower league opposition, like Millwall, obviously, they won't quite hit the playoffs, I wouldn't expect, but they do have ambitions of hitting those sort of levels. And now they're going to be looking at this as an opportunity to win a trophy. I just think Palace will show up, and this bet landed anyway in the last game against Doncaster, where Palace made 19 tackles and the shots were 26 shots. Palace actually made 32 tackles against Villa as well. I had to double take that number. It was so high. I thought it was high 20s, and I sort of lost track. So it was correct when I read it first time. 32 tackles against Villa. I think we'll see a good intensity. Oliver Glasner will set his team up in the way he does. And the fact that the FA Cup's just opened up, it really gives him a chance of a trophy.
Yeah, looks good. Scott's first single of the match is Crystal Palace versus Millwall. Over 16.5 tackles for Crystal Palace and under 30.5 shots in the match. That's a 1.72 with the full unit. On that, Daniele, over to you for a clash of the Titans in Italy.
Yeah, the big top of the table clash on Saturday. Napoli against Inter Milan, but there are reasons to argue this is a 3-horse race, because if Atalanta wins a couple of hours earlier against Venezia home, which they should do, they will go top momentarily. So this is a game that is not decisive, of course, with 12 matches to go. But the feeling is that if Inter wins at the Maradona as they did last season, they might run away with the title. However, it is an inconsistent Inter, only 7 points in the last 5. They lost 2 league games, and is an Inter that I witnessed, that I saw last Sunday playing against Genoa. They look a little bit leggy, look a bit tired, and it's strange because for the first time they enjoyed a 2 weeks break with no matches in between in the week, and they didn't look particularly fresh. However, 3 days ago against Lazio, they got a good victory, playing mostly the second strings player. So obviously the confidence is there. Unlike Napoli, who are winless in 4 games and whose offensive production has really dried up. And this is partially linked to the absence of Kvaratskhelia that was sent to PSG, partially also to the injury to David Neres, who is his natural replacement, and Conte having to switch back to his preferred formation of 3-5-2. And without the contribution of players like McTominay, Politano, Lukaku really hasn't hit the numbers that everyone expected. And the best player so far has been Raspadori in recent weeks. Last season, Napoli were appalling. They finished 41 points behind Inter, but they were first for shots in Serie A. This season, they are 9th, and they are also 9th in terms of expected goals. I would expect this game to be cagey. I would expect this game to be not to lose first. Inter don't have a great record against top of the tables teams, only 12 points from 9 games against Serie A top 7s. But Betsy suggests this game is the highest probability, the one with the highest probability of a draw, over 30.6% in match day 27 in Serie A. I think Inter will control the ball, but I'm not sure they can find they might find the breakthrough many goals. And I like the under 2.5 goals. I know it doesn't pay an awful lot, 167. That's why I go for 1.5 units in this one. But I really struggle to believe this is going to be a high-scoring match.
Yeah, Betsy's in agreement with you on the goal total as well, projecting 2.02 total goals for this game, 0.94 for Napoli, 1.08 for Inter. Thinking about the bet itself, Daniele, is this more, are you expecting this to be the approach of both teams, or is this going to be Napoli's approach first and foremost as the hosts? They haven't got a very good record against Inter. Looking back, was it 1 win in 12 in all competitions against Inter? Not in great form at the moment, conceding goals, not scoring too many. Is this, or is this going to be the approach for both of them? Maybe Napoli can't win the title here, but maybe they could lose it.
I think Inter have been very ponderous in some games against top sides, and their poor record demonstrates them. There is always that sense of security that sometimes backfires. Inter often overplays on like to score the perfect goal, and I think they pay the price in games against Milan or against Juventus, thinking there is always a way for them to get back into the game. Inter also struggles a lot against teams that defend low. For example, in that defeats against Fiorentina not long ago, 3-0, Fiorentina had 6 defenders on the pitch because of injury and suspension. Inter struggled to have a shot on target. Inter are also the team with less dribbles attempted in Serie A this season and last season. And I think if Conte sets up with a 3-5-2, basically matching Inter system, it will be difficult to find spaces for Inter, especially centrally. But for Napoli, on the other hand, I think the approach should be first not to lose, because if they do lose, they lose touch with Inter, of course, and they extend the winless run. But even a draw could be good, because Napoli, of course, unlike Inter, only got the Serie A to focus on, and the tough fixtures have already passed. The final 6 fixtures for Napoli are against teams outside of the top 10 in Serie A. And of course, yes, you also have to consider Atalanta, whose tough run actually is now about to begin. After they play in Venezia, they play all teams in the top 7 for the 6 consecutive games, including, of course, the game against Inter. So it's very much on the balance. I think Napoli feel they'll have a chance. If even a draw will probably satisfy them. Inter, on the other hand, they are top. They're gonna stay top even if they keep a draw. So yeah, I think this one is really probably for risk adverse managers.
Interesting one. He's still backing Inter for the title.
I'm not backing anyone. I only backed Napoli to finish in the top 4 long time ago, which stays as a 5 units bet. So that's my. I mean, look, Inter are favorites. I mean, 175. The odds have shorted on them, and Betsy's probabilities have increased by 6.6%, only because they are 1 point ahead. So now they're like 68% title winners. Napoli are around 25, which is a 20% increase from the beginning of the season, still on Betsy projection. So again, you could argue they have made more ground than anyone else on the reigning champions. It is open. Inter got Feyenoord, they got the Coppa Italia as well. But I do have the feeling the more they play Inter, the more they get focused, the more are on top of it. And maybe those 2 weeks breaks weren't as beneficial as we thought.
Very interesting. Heating up in Serie A, going to be an interesting couple of weeks for sure. Daniele's first single of the pod is under 2.5 goals in Napoli versus Inter. It's 1.67, but there's 1.5 units on that one. Sam, back over to you, looking at a game in England.
Bournemouth versus Wolves. Single for Bournemouth on the minus 0.75 Asian handicap. That's at 1.98. And so, yeah, taking Bournemouth in a match, they lost 1-0 at home last weekend. A match where they received a red card after half an hour versus Wolves. And for a side like Bournemouth, if you lose a man, if you get a man sent off, it might affect you a little bit more than other teams. So Bournemouth's game plan is to press and work the opponent. And if you have one less player on the pitch, it's obviously much easier to play through that press. And once a team can play through that press, then Bournemouth's most effective weapon becomes much less effective. So Wolves took advantage of the man advantage and ran out 1-0 winners. And there's no disgrace in that. It is fine margins at the top level, as we know. And sometimes that'll win or lose you a game. So during the week, on from that game, Bournemouth lost again, 2-1 in Brighton. Brighton were probably one of the most competent teams at working through Bournemouth's press that I've seen all season. We know they're playing brilliantly at the minute. They were the better team overall, although Bournemouth were much better in the second half. And that's also fine. Bournemouth should be losing games of football. The one loss in 16 games before these 2 consecutive defeats was pretty ridiculous in itself, really, for a side like Bournemouth. So I'm not too worried about these 2 losses, these 2 back-to-back losses. And now, on Saturday, it's a chance for payback just 7 days later. And I fully trust Andoni Iraola. He's got plenty of credit in the bank with me. He's just seen his team play Wolves. It's all very fresh in the memory for him. This year, Bournemouth, like we touched on a minute ago with Palace, they have a fantastic chance of winning the FA Cup this year. It's probably going to be their best ever chance to win the FA Cup. So yeah, I'm going to back Iraola and Bournemouth to outsmart whatever comes from the other dugout. As a team, I think they're fully equipped to beat Wolves here. And if Bournemouth don't win, it'll be because they've had an off day, or we see a moment or two of brilliance from Matheus Cunha. I'm happy to roll the dice and lean towards the likelihood of Bournemouth winning this one.
Very interesting. Yeah, I know it's going to bring up the recent Premier League meeting between the two clubs. When it comes to this time of year, and somebody spoke about Daniele at the start of the pod as well, seeing how many repeated fixtures we've had in the cup competitions, in the Champions League, how much do you look into kind of league matches when these kinds of fixtures come up? Is it something that you lean into, or is it something you try to ignore, or how much can you live with them? How much can you learn from them? Or are you being careful not to read too much into it?
I think you've got to look at every match just on a match by match basis, regardless of, in my opinion anyway, when we're betting. But I do think you have to take notice of recent games. You're going to be largely the same personnel. Bournemouth's not going to change their style and approach. Wolves will know that. Herrera will know that, and he'll put a plan in place. He's going to do what he thinks is best tactically to outwit Iraola. So what we saw 7 days ago, it might ring true again. If you are to take close attention to that game on Saturday, then you would have seen that Bournemouth were pretty good in the first half an hour, and the game took a completely different route after the red card. I think the first half finished with maybe 7 shots each, and in the second half, Bournemouth might have had just 1 shot, I think, from the top of my head. So obviously had a huge impact on the game. And a stat I found pretty interesting, actually. At home, when Bournemouth play at home, they've conceded the fewest goals in the Premier League after 13 games. Just 10 goals conceded. And that's level with Liverpool and Forest. And for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but that's not something that I attribute with Bournemouth, really. So when we're looking at this Asian handicap, needing a 2-goal margin for a full win, we know Bournemouth can outscore teams. I've got that image vividly in my head. But maybe this is one where they do keep Wolves quiet as well at home. So yeah, Bournemouth at home, 1.98. I'll take that.
Yeah, I hadn't really spotted that, to be honest. They're not scoring too many at home either, Bournemouth. Looking at it, it came quite tight at home. And Evan Nielsen's back as well, isn't he? He came off the bench last week. Big player for Bournemouth, and yeah, certainly plays into the bet as well. He should probably feature maybe from the start in this game. Sam's second tip of the pod is Bournemouth minus 0.75 versus Wolves in the Asian handicap market. That's at 1.98 with a full unit on that. Scott, over to you, backing the Titans against Man City.
I had to bring up Plymouth. When I saw the pod script and saw we weren't going to touch on Plymouth in this FA Cup one, I was like, oh well, we're going to have to do it.
I'm not allowed to bet on them, so I'm banned.
Maybe we'll just talk about them.
2 weeks left, and then
2 weeks left of the ban. Okay. Well, I've got you this week. Maybe next week. We'll see what happens. Well, normally I'd say to back unders in throw-ins when Man City are home in the FA Cup, but the line is pretty low here considering what Plymouth have been doing since the new manager came in. The Churchillian new manager. We're still all Plymouth here. I know it hasn't quite worked out apart from that Liverpool game, but yeah. Okay, so the first bet's going to come in Man City versus Plymouth, and we're going to back over 30.5 throws in the match. City matches in the Premier League are seeing 29 throws on average, so slightly below the line here, but that number has increased because City just simply aren't as good this season. They're not in the same level of control. Rodri's obviously absent, and he is Mr. Control in that Man City midfield. So we're going to back overs. It's not just a vibe, it's based off some of the data as well. And City, there were 37 throws when they beat Tottenham, obviously last night at one time recording. Obviously, Plymouth are not the same quality as Tottenham, but the throw numbers in their matches since they've changed their manager, they've got that Churchillian figure in charge, have been very, very promising. 51.27 throws on average since he took over, 48 in the last round versus Liverpool. And Liverpool this season, their throw numbers are slightly above City's, but 48 is well above the line we're asking here. And it shows that Plymouth are able to get at a team that are much more accomplished in possession. Okay, they're going to have to do it away from home here, but I don't see Plymouth just sitting. I think they're going to try and be aggressive, particularly in the wide areas, and force City's dynamic wide players to come at them and try and win the ball, which hopefully leads to throws. Another one we're looking at was City have played Leyton Orient in the FA Cup, so there is scope for these throw numbers to go higher. There were 41 throws in that game, so over 30.5 looks very doable here, given the nature, the do or die nature of an FA Cup tie. City not quite as good as they once were, and Plymouth keen to grab another scalp. I don't think they'll get the job done at the Etihad, but certainly something to keep an eye on, and we're back in throws.
Yeah, interesting matchup. I know you're not allowed to bet on it, Sam, but at least not for the next 2 weeks, but I do want to bring you in as the resident Plymouth expert. Plymouth plus 2.75, Asian handicap line, goal line set at 3.75. Any interest in backing the visitors? Could we see a bit of an upset here?
If I was to give you a correct score prediction, I'd probably say 4-0, 5-0. So maybe swerve the Asian handicap. I'm not too. Obviously, it's a.
See, you'll get one, Sam. Come on.
Yeah, it's a mammoth task, obviously, away at the Etihad, and it looks like they're probably going to play all their big boys as well. And for Argyle, this is really the least important game for Argyle in the next 4 or 5 days. They've got Hull on Tuesday night, which is just a massive game in the Championship, and Hull are going to have the weekend off, whilst Argyle go up to Manchester and have to scrap it out with, Premier League champions. So it's come at a bit of an awkward time, but I suppose that's what you get when you beat Premier League leaders at home park. But yeah, it's a tough one. If I was to have a bet on the game, if I was allowed a bet, I'd probably do something like Man City plus 1.5 and Plymouth Argyle under 0.5 in a bet builder, something like that. Comes out around 1.8. But yeah, it's going to be really tough, and our priorities are elsewhere. So this is a difficult one. I think it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, as long as it's scrappy down those touchlines, I don't really mind in terms of this. But
touching on your bet, Scott, what we've seen so far is that Muslic likes to make the pitch really narrow. He likes to pack that middle and allow teams to play out wide. And usually what we've seen is just lots of crosses lumped into the box. I'm not sure if City is going to adopt that kind of approach, but if they do, if there's a lot of play out wide, then there'll probably be a lot of passes into the box, and what will come from there is Katic and Max in the middle. They're just gonna be clearing the ball for 90 minutes. So yeah, in terms of throws, it's probably a good shout.
Looking forward to seeing that matchup against Erling Haaland if he plays. It's going to be quite interesting, I think.
It's going to be interesting. We've got a BTEC Haaland at centre back, really, haven't we? They look fairly similar. He's a bit more skinny than Haaland. That'll be quite amusing. Looking forward to that.
Do you think Jamie Carragher will be thinking that Haaland's ducked out of this one because he took some stick, than he was saying, and he might not have fancied the Real Madrid game, and Pep took offence, obviously. So if Haaland's not playing here, he's definitely ducked there.
With Rudiger, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it.
I don't know if Katic is quite up to really good standards. Not too far off, but he's a big old unit. I would not like to play against him.
I do quite fancy City in the FA Cup this season. I mean, if they can wrap up top four and secure an FA Cup, it's probably the best they can get from this season, the state they've been in the last couple of months. Yeah, fancy them here to get something, admittedly, against such strong opposition. But Scott's second bet is over 30.5 throws, in Man City versus Plymouth. That's a 1.72 with a full unit on that. Daniele, over to you for a pick from the Eredivisie.
Dutch League, yes, the Eredivisie and Feyenoord, one of the two teams still involved in the Champions League, and Inter next opponent. So I'm watching them closely. But they sacked the manager a few weeks ago, Prisky, and they brought in a club legend, Robin Van Persie, in the capacity of manager, of course, not as player, although he only managed 26 times in his entire career this season with Heerenveen, which he left, only winning 9 of them to join his boyhood club, a decision that has raised a few eyebrows in the Netherlands, of course, because of Van Persie's limited experience, no doubt about his charisma, a team that is extremely young after selling Santiago Jimenez in the January transfer windows. In the game against Milan, they had 3 players under 19, still managed to knock out the Rossoneri, but now they are playing at home this weekend against the NEC Nijmegen, and according to Betsy, they got a 70.7 chance of securing the victory, making them the heaviest favorite for this match day in the Netherlands. So I am backing Van Persie. I am backing Feyenoord to win this game against NEC Nijmegen with an Asian handicap of -1, which pays 172 on Bet365. And why? Because I believe Betsy are right. Also, Feyenoord have won 6 games this season in all competition by more than 1 goal in all competitions, well, including that 3-0 against Bayern at home at the Kuip. But also, if you look at the projections of Betsy, from now on, Feyenoord project to achieve 2.03 points per game, which is a significant improvement from the current average of 1.86. So where are they going to pick up those points? Well, the home fixtures are very favorable because they only host one team, PSV, currently in the top 6, and all the other games are against teams from lower table, including NEC Nijmegen. So I think this is a winnable one. No doubt about they will make changes, although they got a very skeleton squad with 10 players out, so probably they'll have to play the strong 11s anyway. They cannot win the league, can still finish third. I'm sure they give Inter a very, very good game, but I think they're going to win this one. Maybe this is going to be a low-scoring game. Betsy projects a goal difference, 149 in favor of the hosts. I side with Van Persie. They will show no mercy and beat NEC Nijmegen.
Yeah, very interesting appointment, isn't it? Somebody so young, obviously very well-known name across Europe, but yeah, interesting to see him get a job. It's such a big job at such a young age for managers, relatively. Daniele, are you concerned that maybe they'll have one eye on the Champions League? Obviously, big game against your club Inter coming up as well. How do you think Van Persie's going to how do you think he's going to be assessed this season? It's quite rare for a manager to come in midway through a season and have their second match as a Champions League round of 16 tie, isn't it?
No, I think Feyenoord, of course, they will want to do well against Inter, and I think they will do well. Playing at the Kuip, it's not easy. The last 4 Italian teams that played there never won. Inter, Milan, Roma, Lazio. It's difficult there. It's one of the most difficult away trips, I would say. However, I think for them is a bonus, is a free hit. Nobody expects them really to go through. If they do, it's amazing. They've already accomplished a miracle by knocking out Milan, by beating Bayern Munich as well. Everything will hinge on their away performance, really, because I think the Kuip is going to be very competitive. But it's the first game in charge for Van Persie in the biggest job of his very short managerial career. I don't think he's going to make too many changes or rotation. He should play the strongest 11, really. First game, he will want to impress. And I think he can. The team is strong, is solid. Got a good defense there, especially led by Hanchko. Again, as said about the injuries, but yeah, probably not too much going into, not too many speculation really about Wednesday game anyway. And also, it's a Saturday game. The other game is on Wednesday. He's at home. No reason really to alter the formation too much.
Yeah, good point. Betsy's giving Feyenoord 2.35 projected goals and 1.49 goal difference. So certainly in agreement with you here. Nice to get a line a little bit lower. So Daniele's third bet of the show so far is Feyenoord -1 in the Asian handicap market. 1.72 odds with a full unit on that. Let's get on with the pod treble. 2 losses last week, including my sole entry, hopefully my last entry into the pod treble. Sam, do you want to kick us off?
I'm going with Birmingham to beat Wycombe at home in League One at 1.72. So this is the 5th time this season where Birmingham have been priced up at 1.60 or bigger when playing at St Andrews. They are quite clearly the best team in the division, dominant at home, spent a fortune on their squad compared to the rest of the clubs, and they are effectively a mid-table championship club running out in League One. So when there's a price of 1.60 or bigger, my interests are instantly peaked. Obviously, this is a price range that will come against the better League One teams. So far, Birmingham have beaten Stockport 2-0 at 1.65, Bolton 2-0 at 1.75, Huddersfield 1-0 at 1.60, and Wrexham 3-1 at 1.80. So at these prices, I just simply have to take them on at these odds, and it's the perfect price for the pod treble. So that's ideal. And there are concerns up top in Stansfield and Dykes. They're both missing, but Alfie May is a very able deputy that any other team in League One would love to have operating in the final third. So he'll probably come in up front for Birmingham. Wickham, they're second in the league, eyeing automatics, and they may cause Birmingham a few problems, but the host should still be too good for me. Resilient at home, conceded just 7 in 16 games, won 13 of 16, still unbeaten on home soil. And it's these kind of matches, they often step up and flex their muscles. We just saw them play Newcastle in the FA Cup, and I thought they were excellent. Unlucky not to progress through to the next round. So I'm keen to include them here at 1.72.
Yeah, looks good. Scott, over to you, your selection for Pod Treble.
I'm going for Nottingham Forest to beat Ipswich. I did double take this price, to be honest with you. Ipswich, probably down after losing that relegation 6-pointer at Old Trafford. Obviously, they had the man advantage for a sizable portion of the game, couldn't make it count. And I just think Forest will be reasonably happy with the way they drew 0-0 against Arsenal. Okay, they didn't offer a great deal going forward. Arsenal are defensively solid. Just one of those games that they're targeting, obviously, Champions League football. And they've already beaten Ipswich 1-0 this season, so they're only meeting between the sides so far this season at the City Ground in November. Forest ran at 1-0 winners. The Tractor Boys have won just 2 of 15 away games against Premier League opposition this season. They haven't faced any in either of the cup competitions. They conceded 2.08 goals per game during that period. And I just think Forest, a good value at that price here. We've spoken about Forest. They deserve their plaudits. They've got a really, really handy attack. Chris Wood and Nunes as the coach, Nuno Santo, I should say, sorry, as the coach. He's got an incredible record since he came in. I think it was 0.78 goals per game under the new man. Well, not new now, but the current manager, which puts him in incredible company with like Suarez's record under Rodgers. And you've got the 3 players in support: Alanga, Gibbs White. They just look so lethal going forward, and I think they can cause problems for Ipswich. So Forest lost just 2 of their 15 home games across all comps this season, winning 7 of the last 10. It really does look bad news for Ipswich, so I'm happy to bag a home win here.
Yeah, nice price there. And Daniele, close it off with your selection.
It's Torino traveling to bottom of the table, Monza, in a game that probably is very, very close to call, or at least for Betsy. The goal difference is 0.1 in favor of Torino. I'm not expecting a cracker. I'm not expecting a lot of goals. After all, it's the worst attack for expected goals, Monza, against the 3rd worst attack for expected goals, Torino. Curiously, Monza have never lost at home this season by more than a goal margin. So the games have been very, very tight. But based on underlying data, they still be bottom. Torino, good win against Milan. Inconsistent. I think they're going to finish 11 in the season in the league anyway, which probably it is disappointing. But looking at projected finish, Monza from now on, according to Betsy, should collect less than a point per game in the remaining fixtures. Torino, just above a point per game. So you think, where is Monza going to collect these points after all? Where they got probably more winnable fixtures, a home to Parma, away to Cagliari, maybe a home to Empoli. That's why I side for Torino with a minus 0.25 Asian handicap at 170. As I said, it is risky, but if they draw, you only lose half a stake.
Yeah. Yep, looks good. Put all this together into a Pod Treble. You'll get odds of 4.84, which we will be tracking for a quarter of a unit. Let's recap the bets. Sam, do you want to kick us off with your singles? And if you're back in the Pod Treble, include that as well.
Yeah, I'm going for Burton 0.0 Asian handicap versus Mansfield at 1.9. Bournemouth minus 0.75 Asian handicap versus Wolves at 1.98. And also Birmingham to beat Wickham at 1.72 or for a unit on Bet365.
Cool. And Scott?
Palace versus Millwall, over 16.5 tackles for Palace and under 30.5 shots in the match at 1.72. Then Man City versus Plymouth, over 30.5 throws in the match, also at 1.72, a unit on both.
Cool. And Daniele?
Napoli Inter under 2.5 goals at 167, 1.5 unit. And the Feyenoord against NEC Nijmegen, Feyenoord handicap minus 1 at 172, 1 unit.
And the Liverpool treble as well? That's part of it.
Yes, the Liverpool treble, of course. Half a unit on Liverpool to win the treble at 8. Yeah, massive one.
Good stuff. And the pod treble this week, Sam's selection, as he said, is Birmingham to win against Wickham. Scott is going for Nottingham Forest to beat Ipswich. And Daniele is going for Torino minus 0.25 in the Asian handicap market against Monza. All of those three selections together into a treble will get odds of 4.74. As we're recording, the odds for a Birmingham win have come down to 1.66, which is infuriating. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly. Only bet what you can afford to lose. Thank you very much to Sam Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott Thornton.
Cheers, thank you.
And thanks, Daniele Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you for me. We'll be back on Monday with a Champions League special.